Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson Tonight. Here is the main thing you need to know about Joe Biden. He is 80 years old, rather. He was born in 1942 in the first half of the last century. The year Biden was born, only 36% of American households had a telephone. Nearly half of them did not have indoor plumbing. Joe Biden turned 80 last November. This fall, he will be 81. If Biden were to serve a second full term as president, he would be 86 years old, in other words, 4 years from 90. These are not trivial facts about Joe Biden. These are the central facts of Joe Biden's life. Joe Biden's age defines him, and all of us. That's true for every person. Age is just a number, you will hear people say, but they are lying to themselves. Age is more than a number. Age is an expression of the core biological reality of human existence, which is that at some point it comes to a close. Age is the way that we chart our progression from birth to death as we pass from this world, as billions before us have, and are replaced by others. That used to be called the cycle of life. No one has ever changed it. No one ever will. So our choice is between accepting a reality we cannot alter or denying that reality even exists. The Democratic Party has chosen the latter. Tomorrow is March 1st. That means a year from today, we'll be in the middle of presidential primary season. Joe Biden has given every indication that he plans to participate in that and that his party is firmly behind him. The DNC has already changed the primary calendar to make South Carolina, which is a machine state where the outcome can easily be scripted, the very first contest. And that was not an accident. It was done. It was changed to help Joe Biden win. Biden says he's strongly considering running again. Biden's wife, of course, says she very much hopes he will run. And most tellingly of all, no mainstream Democrat has announced a run against him. So as of tonight, Joe Biden is in the race for the Democratic nomination, and as of tonight, he will get the nomination. And that's just amazing if you think about it. Joe Biden would be 82 years old on Inauguration Day. That is 8 years older than the average life expectancy for men in this country. So virtually everyone in his high school class will be gone by then, but Joe Biden will be just beginning his second term as president of the United States. Would that be healthy for America? Would it be healthy for Joe Biden? Of course not. It's awful. 82-year-old men should not be running countries. They're not strong enough mentally or physically. Everybody knows that, very much including any 82-year-old man you ask. The people around Joe Biden certainly know that. How could they not know that? They watch him, and you do too. Here's Joe Biden in Warsaw, Poland, just last week.
The questions we faced were as simple as they were profound. Would we respond, or would we look the other way? Would we be strong, or would we be weak? All of our allies, would be united or divided?
So we play clips like that a million times for you over the past few years. We could play a million more because Joe Biden talks like that every day. At this point, it's how he talks. Joe Biden is losing his ability to speak. That's not a secret. It's not something we learned from our confidential sources and are bringing to you for the first time tonight exclusively. That is obvious to the entire world. And you'll probably sound like that too if you make it to Joe Biden's age. We will also. It's not weird. It's natural. It's not an attack on Joe Biden, hardly. It's an observation. But because it's natural, we have been commanded to ignore it. Don Lemon got suspended from his show at CNN recently for suggesting that a presidential candidate in her 50s was, quote, past her prime. And that's odd, really. As a factual matter, what Don Lemon said is true. People in their 50s are literally, certainly physically, past their prime. That's a fact. Take it from someone who's 53. So why was that such a controversial point? Of all the demented things that Don Lemon has said over the years, noticing somebody's age is what blows up his career? Yes. Because that simple, commonplace observation, people weaken with age, points to a power that will forever remain beyond human authority, which is the power to control time. No matter how rich we are, we cannot prevent ourselves from getting older. We can buy Botox and hair plugs and facelifts. Joe Biden has bought all of that. But in the end, we degrade anyway because we are not God. Accepting this fact that we are not God, working within the preordained limits of nature, is the key to balance and happiness in this human life. Ignoring that fact leads to insanity, or in the case of modern America, it leads to the trans agenda and climate theology. If you asked 100 honest people to name the things that human beings cannot control, most would list biological sex and the weather. You can't decide whether you're a boy or a girl. You are what you are born. Sorry. And nobody, try as we might, can make a sunny day. You don't manufacture it, you receive it. A sunny day either happens or it doesn't. It's not up to you. At best, we can try to predict the weather. We cannot determine the weather. Since the dawn of time, that has been so obvious that almost nobody's ever mentioned it. But saying it out loud is now heresy. And that's because our leadership class is at open war with nature. Nature is the final limit to their power, and so they hate it. They tell us they're in charge of human biology, even of DNA. Trans women are women, they screech. Meet our Lady Admiral. They brag about how they now control the weather. Too hot for you? Hold on, we'll change that with the Green New Deal. And then they tell us, of course, that age no longer matters. Joe Biden may live forever. We've got AI now. It's all a ridiculous fantasy. They have no such power. They can't even keep the electrical grid running in the state of California. And on some level, they know that. They know how limited they are, which is why they become so hysterical in the face of physical reality, because it's a reminder of their limits. Do you remember this fall when that NBC reporter, a woman called Dasha Burns, dared to point out that John Fetterman's stroke had damaged him? Well, of course it had damaged him. Everyone could see it had damaged him. But to Fetterman's wife and the rest of the Democratic establishment and the rest of the press corps, saying something like that out loud was more offensive than any obscenity. Here's an outraged Mrs. Fetterman.
What a disservice that she did to not only my husband, but to anyone facing a disability and working through it. And I don't know how there were not consequences, right? I mean, there are consequences for folks in these positions who are any of the isms. I mean, she was ableist.
Well, she's an ableist, howled Giselle Fetterman, because someone had correctly pointed out that her husband was no longer able because he had a stroke. In other words, reality intruded on Mrs. Fetterman's fantasy, and therefore reality itself had to be shouted down and destroyed. You're seeing an awful lot of this attitude, that exact attitude recently, from the people in charge. It's not a healthy sign. Wise leaders recognize the limits, the inherent limits of their power. They know that they're not in control of much, actually, because no one is. You can decide what to have for breakfast, that's up to you, but you cannot decide to become a woman. You can't choose to live to 100. You can't even choose to think clearly at 80. None of that is your choice, even if you're the president. Life, unfortunately, is a sexually transmitted, invariably fatal condition. That's not a bad thing, it's just true. And when you deny it, bad things happen. And they are. Subscribe to the Fox News YouTube channel to catch our nightly opens, stories that are changing the world and changing your life. From Tucker Carlson Tonight.